Hi friends, welcome back. There's one more feature that I've added. It is a part of the bot service itself. It's a pretty cool feature. You can usually bots are used for like conversational activities, right? So when you ask a question and it responds back with options, and you pick up a bunch of options and then you keep repeating, right? Usually that's the flow for a bot, but in this particular case, what we have done is actually it allows you to build an adaptive card that can be used very similar to like how we would use a form in a traditional web application. So what in this example what we have done is we have created a specific adaptive card that kind of allows you to create some kind of an inspection report. So this is what I'm going to show you here. So this is like an adaptive card. This adaptive card has different types of placeholders or sections. And if you see here, like you have input text. Input text is a text field, just like how we would put it on a form. And then you have input or date that will allow you to take date input from the user. And then there's also called input or toggle, which almost acts like a checkbox. So the idea is, we are trying to create an inspection workflow using the bot framework. So that will look pretty cool. So I will first show you the way it works, and then we can kind of go into the code and see what we're doing. These kind of bots are usually called as workflow bots. So they usually take some input from the user, then do something, and then kind of um, and then respond back with maybe more adaptive cards and etc. Right. So that's kind of the big picture view. So this is the same application, Teams FX application. So everything is exactly the same, other than a bunch of extra files inside the bot folder. So if you go back to your Teams toolkit here, and then you'll go to the local dev environment, and then you'll just hit start, debug, or you can press F5. It's faster. So yeah, let's get this started up, and then I can show you a demo of how this thing works. So we had shown demo of all the search features, like we can type win BRM and email and all that, right? So this is actually a little bit more fun to watch and fun to implement. This is almost like a web form kind of implemented with Teams functionality. So it'll be clear when you see this, and then I can show the code that is behind the scenes that's making it happen. So this started up the React app. It started up the Teams Teams pop-up, and then now we're going to put this into our application, just pretty much like how we used to do before. So we added it. So once you add this, exactly the same thing. These are the three things that we implemented in the previous video, like win for the win search, VRM for the vehicle registration search, and email for the customer search. So this is the fourth one, capture vehicle inspection data. So we can click on inspection, and I can hit escape key. I'll close that window, and then you can hit enter. So what this is doing is it's sending an inspection message to the bot, and the bot responds with pretty much this adaptive card that functions very similar to this web form. So this is a very simple version of the form that we can put together for this demo. So we can add in your uh, name, and maybe make up some min number, and you pick a date for the inspection. And this is pretty much like how I would imagine, like service person is looking at the vehicle and kind of you can check different boxes. Maybe it's low battery or water level is low, fuel level is low, and you can say you need to replace brakes and tires, and then you can say that I have some issues with the lighting, and then you can submit the report. So once you submit the report, pretty much it goes back. I'm not doing anything to insert into the database or do anything fancy like that. All I'm doing is taking the data and echoing it back. So you can see that some of them are false and some of them are true. And then this is pretty much the form data that you could use in different ways and respond in different ways too, to make it more sophisticated. So that's pretty cool. That's one easy way to capture the entire like the form in one go. right? So that the original form will go away. You can tell that it kind of goes away. But yeah, you will see the inspection report, and it says a response was sent to the app, right? So going back to the code base, right? So if you kind of see this, let me close everything so it's easier to see. Um, Let me actually go ahead and close this window. And once I close the window, it kills all the sessions here. See, all everything stops, and you can hit enter and it will close all the terminals, just so that you can have more realistic view. So if you come back, we had previously seen a bunch of these Win handlers, and right, we had seen VRM handler, VRM command handler, Win search handler, email search handler, etc. So what we have added here is pretty much like two classes. The inspection command handler is the one which gets invoked when you type in the word inspection. So if you look at that, so this is the trigger patterns, and it's a class. And all we are doing here is when you see the word inspection, you're going to load this inspection card, which is nothing but the one which I showed you before. It has the definition of the form with all the input parameters, the checkboxes, and all of that. And all we are doing is we are declaring it and rendering it. This render with nothing means there's no parameterization involved, so it's just going to render the card as is. Since this was the actual input capture form, there's nothing customized right there, right? So this very simple piece of code, it directly calls this when you type in the word inspection, and it's going to send this attachment back, which is nothing but the form that shows up, right? So that's the first easy part. So when you have something like this kind of an adaptive card, the inspection card, one of the things in the bottom, right, what we do is we kind of set up something called actions. Right? This is usually not there in the older examples because it was just showing people data, etc. But in this case, you'll see there's actions and there's a type action or execute. There are other actions you can look up. There's action open URL, there's action submit, etc. But action execute is the one which actually kind of executes another action, right? And then one of the things to remember here is this verb. This verb controls what action gets invoked, and that should be globally unique. So if you have a submit inspection verb, that should be mapped only to one specific action. So otherwise, this is going to cause confusion, right? So the idea here is what we're saying is almost like a form submit button, and then in the form we have an action variable before, right? In the web version, it's almost like it's going to submit to this particular action. So that's the second piece of the puzzle. So once you get the actions ready, then the third class, which I'm showing here, is what captures the input that the person has entered. So the subtle difference here is it's action handler versus command handler. Command handler is the first opening message, and then the action handler is the one that actually process the user's input and then kind of does whatever you need to do. So if you put this as a subtle difference here, so here now what we are doing is we are okay. Let me compare it, and then it's easier to understand. So there are two different methods. So the class, if you see, this is handle command received and trigger patterns. But if you see the other one, it will be handle action invoked, and the trigger verb is the trigger, right? That's something I had to try and play and get it to work. But that's the important piece, right? You need to implement this handle action invoked method when it is actually trying to get the data from the user and then trying to print it out or do something with it. And the other one is the command handler, where you are going to actually say on command when the command was invoked, right? That's the first piece. Then the second piece here is we need to have this particular class also imported called the invoke response factory, and that is the one which actually sends back the adaptive card that we want to respond back to the user after the data was processed, right? So if you see here, all I'm doing here is we got the message is the one which actually has the user input. It's usually coming back in JSON format, and it's going to have the same the key value kind of it's almost like a map, right? So what we are doing is we're basically echoing it. You can insert in the database and or maybe call a web service to do something with it. But the idea here is it is going to just echo the string back, and then you need to JSON stringify it because it's a dictionary or a map kind of object, and then you need to make it into a JSON string. And then all we do is we invoke response factory dot adaptive card, and we send the card that we have created. Very similar to what we used to do before, but this is just an example of sending the data back. So that is pretty much all we have here, and you can see this is exactly what we saw, right? Congratulations, your inspection is processed successfully, and then the message was a JSON representation of whatever we had checked or unchecked in that form, along with the first name, middle name, etc. So that is what I want to show in this video. This is pretty cool because you can actually take a lot of complex inputs from the users, very similar to how you would using web form, and that is a little bit different kind of a use case for a bot usage, right? And this is kind of how the Teams FX modules are written. They are called command bots, and this kind of a combination use case is where you take in a command and respond back with an action is usually called a workflow bot. So both command bots and workflow bots are kind of used extensively. We'll also cover other things like message extensions where you can actually put these bots on demand directly into a Teams chat or a channel chat just on demand. So it's not going to be accumulated into all this. It's going to be deployed specifically as a bot, separate bot, and then that is the one you can actually look it up and then invoke in your chats. Maybe if you have a one-on-one session with a user and you want to kind of demonstrate the inspection that we have found, we can write a bot that will actually take in an ID for the inspection and then go to the database and pull the information back and show it as an adaptive card. Very similar to what we did with like WinSearch and whatever, right? So if we could implement that, then that we could embed that directly when the chat was going on, and kind of pull it up on the fly. So that's another use case we can try if we have time. Um, but that's another idea. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover and show in this video. Hope you like it and get some kind of learning in the process. Thank you.